The year was 2487, and humanity had spread across the solar system like seeds in the wind. They lived on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, and in floating stations around Saturn. But no matter how far they went, they remained trapped in their own galaxy, the Milky Way. Beyond it lay Andromeda, a spiral of light containing 1 trillion stars, sitting 2.5 million light-years away. Every scientist said it was impossible to reach. Every alien species laughed at humans for even thinking about it. Captain Park Jin-ho stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, surrounded by beings from 12 different worlds. Some had scales, some had tentacles, and some looked like living clouds of gas. They had been traveling between stars for millions of years before humans even learned to make fire. And now, they stared at the human delegation with something between pity and amusement. "You wish to travel to Andromeda?" said the council leader, a tall creature with silver skin and eyes like black diamonds. "Your species lives for less than a century. Your civilization is barely 10,000 years old. What makes you think you can do what we have never done?" Jin-ho was 45 years old. His hair was turning gray at the sides, and his face carried the weight of many difficult years. His father had died trying to explore deep space when Jin-ho was just a boy. That loss had shaped him into the man he was now. He did not smile at the alien's question. He did not get angry. He simply looked at the council leader and spoke. "Because we have to," he said. "Because if we do not try, then what is the point of being alive?" The aliens laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, but it was the laugh of parents watching a child say they wanted to catch the moon. They did not believe humans could succeed. They had watched hundreds of species try to cross the void between galaxies. All of them had failed. All of them had died or turned back. But Jin-ho did not care what they believed. 3 months later, he stood in a laboratory on Earth's moon, watching a woman write equations on a glass board. Her name was Unikong, and she was the smartest person Jin-ho had ever met. She was 38 years old, with tired eyes and hair that she'd never remembered to brush. She had spent 15 years working on a single problem: how to travel faster than light. "I call it the fold drive," Una said, turning to face Jin-ho. "It does not make the ship go faster. It folds space itself. Imagine taking a piece of paper and bringing 2 corners together. The distance between them becomes 0. That is what this engine does." Jin-ho looked at the equations. He did not understand most of them. "Will it work?" Una paused. She was not the kind of person who gave easy answers. "I believe it will, but I cannot promise anything. The energy required is enormous. The stress on the ship will be extreme, and we have never tested it on a journey this long." "But it is possible?" Una met his eyes. "Yes, it is possible." That was enough for Jin-ho. The news spread across Earth and all the human colonies. For the first time in 300 years, every nation on Earth agreed on something. They would build the ship together. They would send their best people. They would prove that humanity was more than a young species stumbling through the darkness. The ship was called the Horizon's Edge. It took 2 years to build. It was the largest vessel humans had ever created, 1/2 kilometer long, with engines that glowed blue like captured stars. Inside, there was room for 200 crew members. Along with enough supplies to last for decades, Jin-ho selected each crew member personally. He wanted people who were skilled, yes, but more than that, he wanted people who believed. He wanted dreamers and fighters, people who would not give up when things got hard. One of the first people he chose was Kim Tae-ho, pilot who was only 32 years old. Tae-ho was known for being reckless. He flew ships the way some people played games, taking risks that made other pilots sweat. But Jin-ho saw something else in him. He saw a young man who was running from pain, trying to find something worth living for. "Why do you fly like you do not care if you die?" Jin-ho asked him during the interview. Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. "My sister died in the colony disaster on Titan. I was supposed to protect her. I failed." He looked up at Jin-ho with hard eyes. "I am not looking for death, Captain. I am looking for something that makes her death mean something." Jin-ho nodded slowly. "Then come with us. Help us do something that no one has ever done." Taiho joined the crew that same day. As the launch date approached, more aliens came to watch. They filled the observation platforms above Earth, curious to see humanity's grand failure. Some of them made bets on how long the ship would last. Most guessed it would turn back within a month. A few thought the crew would die within a week. On the day of the launch, Ginho stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, surrounded by his crew. 200 humans from every corner of Earth and every colony in the solar system. Scientists and soldiers, engineers and doctors, all of them united by a single dream. Yuna sat at the main control station, her fingers resting on the activation switch for the fold drive. She had not slept in 3 days. The weight of everything they were about to do pressed down on her like a mountain, but her hands did not shake. "All systems are ready, Captain," she said. Jinho looked out the main window at Earth below. Blue and green and white, the planet that had given birth to humanity. He thought about his father, who had died among the stars. He thought about all the people who had called this mission foolish. He thought about the aliens who were watching, waiting for humans to fail. "Begin the launch sequence," he said. The engines roared to life. The ship began to rise, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The crew felt the force push them back into their seats. Outside, the sky changed from blue to black as they left the atmosphere behind. Taiho watched the stars appear through the window. For the first time in years, he felt something that might have been hope. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just a blue dot in the darkness. Ahead of them lay the unknown, the vast empty space between galaxies that no human had ever crossed. Jinho walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. He thought about all the people back on Earth who were watching, hoping, praying for their success. He thought about the future they were trying to build. "We are not just doing this for ourselves," he said, speaking to his crew, but also to himself. "We are doing this for everyone who comes after us. We are proving that nothing is impossible. We are showing the universe what humans can do." The horizon's edge fired its main engines and began its journey toward Andromeda. Behind them, the aliens watched in silence. They still did not believe humans would succeed. But for the first time, some of them wondered if they might be wrong. 6 months had passed since the horizon's edge left Earth behind. The ship had made dozens of jumps through folded space, each one bringing them closer to Andromeda. But each jump also took its toll. The hull groaned under the stress. Systems that should have lasted for years began to fail after weeks, and the crew was starting to feel the weight of what they had done. Lee Minho was the chief engineer, a young man of 29 who seemed to live in the engine room. He had grease on his hands and dark circles under his eyes. He slept only a few hours each night because there was always something breaking, always something that needed to be fixed. "The secondary power coupling is failing again," he told Captain Jinho one morning. "I have repaired it 6 times already. Each jump makes it worse." Ginho looked at the young engineer. "Can you keep the ship running?" Minho wiped his hands on a rag that was already dirty. "I will keep it running, even if I have to hold the pieces together with my bare hands." That was the kind of answer Jinho had come to expect from his crew. They did not complain. They did not ask to turn back. They just kept working, kept fighting, kept believing. But not everyone found it easy to believe. Shin Suho was the ship's navigator, a former military man who had spent 20 years planning battles and calculating risks. He was 40 years old, with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped analyzing every situation. He was good at his job, one of the best, but the further they traveled from home, the more afraid he became. He did not show his fear to the others. He kept it locked inside, hidden behind a mask of cold efficiency. But at night, when he was alone in his quarters, he would stare at the star maps and feel his hands shake. They were traveling through regions of space where no human had ever been. There were no landmarks, no familiar constellations, just endless darkness and the distant glow of galaxies they would never reach. One day, the ship entered a region that the crew came to call the Dead Zone. There were no stars here, no planets, no light at all, except for what came from the ship itself. It was as if they had fallen into a hole in the universe. The crew gathered at the windows and stared out at the nothing. Some of them felt peaceful looking at the emptiness. Others felt a deep, cold terror that they could not explain. Taeho was one of the ones who felt terror. He had flown through asteroid fields and solar storms. He had faced death many times. But this emptiness was different. It made him feel small in a way that nothing else ever had. How long until we are through this? He asked Suho. The navigator checked his calculations. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. Taeho cursed under his breath. I do not know if I can look at this nothing for 4 weeks. Then do not look, Suho said coldly. Focus on your work. The tension between Taeho and Suho had been growing for weeks. Taeho thought Suho was too careful, too slow to take risks. Suho thought Taeho was reckless and dangerous. They argued about navigation paths, about fuel usage, about everything. One night, the argument turned into something more. Taeho accused Suho of being afraid. Suho accused Taeho of having a death wish. They shouted at each other in the navigation room until other crew members had to pull them apart. Captain Jinho called them both to his office. I do not care if you like each other, he said. I do not care if you hate each other. But you will work together. You will respect each other. Because if we start fighting among ourselves, we have already lost. Both men lowered their heads. They knew Jinho was right. While the crew dealt with their fears and conflicts, Unikong was dealing with something she had told no one about. The full drive required someone to monitor it during each jump. That person was exposed to strange radiation that the shields could not fully block. Yuna had taken that job herself, because she did not want to risk anyone else. Now she was paying the price. Her hands shook when she tried to write. She got headaches that lasted for hours. Sometimes she lost feeling in her fingers. She knew what was happening to her body, but she kept working anyway. The mission was more important than her life. Dr. Hanacho was the ship's medical officer. A calm woman of 34 who had a gift for making people feel safe. She noticed that Yuna was getting sick. She saw the signs that others missed. One day, she cornered Yuna in the medical bay. How long have you known? Hannah asked why UNA did not pretend to misunderstand. Since the 3rd month. You should have told me. There might be treatments. Yuna shook her head. There is no cure for radiation damage like this. You know that. I knew the risk when I designed the drive. I accepted it, and it was quiet for a long moment. Then, she put her hand on Yuna's shoulder. Then let me help you manage the pain. Let me give you more time. Yuna finally allowed herself to cry. It was the first time she had shown weakness since the mission began. As the ship continued through the dead zone, they detected something unexpected. A signal, weak and old, coming from somewhere ahead. Minho traced it to a small object floating in the darkness. They brought it aboard and discovered it was a beacon. A warning left by some ancient species millions of years ago. The message was simple. Turn back. There is only death ahead. The crew gathered to hear the translation. Some of them felt their hope begin to fade. If other species had tried to cross this void and failed, what chance did humans have? Captain Jinho stood before them and spoke. Every species that came before us stopped here, he said. They saw this warning and turned around. They decided that the void was too dangerous, that Andromeda was too far, that the risk was too great. He paused and looked at each of them. But we are not like them. We did not come this far to give up because of a message from the past. We came here to write a new message, one that says humans do not stop. We do not turn back. We keep going until we reach our goal or die trying. The crew was silent. Then, slowly, they began to nod. Some of them straightened their backs. Some of them wiped tears from their eyes. But all of them felt something stir inside them. Something that pushed away the fear. They continued forward. 3 weeks later, they emerged from the dead zone and saw the first stars of the intergalactic space beyond. They were still impossibly far from Andromeda. They had lost equipment and sleep and some of their innocence. But they had made it through. Taeho found Suho in the navigation room that night. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Taiho said, "I am sorry for what I said before." Suho nodded slowly. "I am sorry too. I was afraid. I still am. But you were right about one thing. Fear cannot control us. If it does, we have already lost." They shook hands. It was not friendship. Not yet. But it was a start. Jinho watched the stars through the main window and thought about how far they had come. They were still alive. The ship was still flying. And somewhere ahead, Andromeda was waiting for them. He allowed himself a small smile. They were going to make it. He could feel it in his bones. 1 year into the journey, the horizon's edge floated in the vast emptiness between galaxies. Behind them, the Milky Way was now just a smear of light in the distance. Ahead, Andromeda was growing brighter every day. They were in the middle of nowhere, trapped between two islands of stars in an ocean of darkness. The crew had changed in that year. They had become harder, stronger, more connected to each other. They had faced problems that would have broken lesser people. But they had survived, and they were still moving forward. Borisio was the head of security, a woman of 27 who had grown up in the military colonies near Mars. She was small, but fierce. With muscles built from years of combat training, she led the teams that protected the ship and its crew from any threat. So far, there had been no threats. But Bora never let her guard down. "The universe is too big to be empty," she told her team. "Something is out here. We just have not met it yet." She was right. The storm appeared without warning. One moment, the sensors showed nothing but empty space. The next, they were screaming alarms. A wall of energy was rushing toward them, a wave of radiation and lightning that stretched across 1,000,000 kilometers. Captain Ginho demanded. Suho checked his instruments with shaking hands. "I do not know. There is nothing like this in any of our records. It should not exist." But it did exist. And it was coming straight for them. The ship tried to run, but the storm was faster. Within minutes, the first waves hit them. The horizon's edge shook like a leaf in a hurricane. Lights flickered. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Crew members were thrown from their seats. Shields are failing. Minho shouted from the engine room. "I need more power." Yuna was at her station, her hands flying across the controls, even as pain shot through her body. The radiation was making her sickness worse, but she did not stop. She could not stop. "I can reroute power from the fold drive," she said. "But if I do, we will not be able to jump for at least a week." Jinho made the decision in half a second. "Do it, Yuna," redirected the power. The shields strengthened just in time to catch the worst of the storm. But it was not enough. The ship was being torn apart. For 72 hours, Minho and Yuna worked without sleep. They crawled through damaged sections of the ship, fixing broken systems, welding cracked hull plates, keeping the horizon's edge alive through sheer force of will. Other crew members brought them food and water. Hannah came to check on Yuna every few hours, injecting her with medicine to keep her going. On the third day, the storm finally passed. The ship was damaged, but intact. The crew was exhausted, but alive. Ginho found Minho and Yuna asleep in the engine room, surrounded by tools and scattered parts. He did not wake them. He just covered them with blankets and let them rest. They had earned it. 2 weeks later, they detected ships. At first, no one believed it. Ships out here in the void between galaxies. It seemed impossible, but the sensors did not lie. There were hundreds of vessels ahead, floating in a loose formation. They were old, covered in dust and damage, as if they had been drifting for thousands of years. The horizon's edge approached carefully. Bora had her security teams on full alert. Taiho kept his hand near the weapon controls. Everyone watched and waited. Then a signal came through. It was weak and broken, but it was clearly a voice. Someone was alive on those ships. "We are the Wanderers," the voice said. "We are the last of our kind. Please, do not attack. We mean you no harm." Captain Jinho ordered the ship to stop. He opened a channel and replied, "We are humans from the Milky Way. We are traveling to Andromeda. We do not wish to fight." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, filled with something that sounded like wonder. "You are traveling to Andromeda? But that is where we fled from. That is where the Hollow Ones wait." Jinho felt a chill run down his spine. What are the Hollow Ones? The Wanderers told them. They were an ancient species, older than humanity by millions of years. Long ago, they had lived in Andromeda, building great cities among the stars. But then the Hollow Ones had come. They were machines created by some forgotten race, designed to harvest organic life for energy. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped. They consumed entire civilizations like fire consumes dry wood. The Wanderers had escaped, fleeing across the void between galaxies, but they had lost everything in the flight. Their culture, their history, their hope. Now they just drifted, waiting to die. "Turn back," the Wanderers warned. "Andromeda is a graveyard. Every species that enters it is destroyed." The crew of the Horizon's Edge listened to this warning. Some of them felt afraid. Some of them felt angry. But none of them wanted to turn back. Insanari Moon was the youngest officer on the ship, a communications specialist who was only 24 years old. She had a gift for finding hope in dark situations. When the meeting ended, she spoke up. "They said every species that enters Andromeda is destroyed," she said. "But no one has ever tried to fight back. No one has ever tried to destroy the Hollow Ones. What if we could be the first?" It was a bold idea, maybe a foolish idea, but it planted a seed in the minds of the crew. Dr. Hannah Cho asked permission to visit the Wanderer ships and treat their sick. Ginho agreed. She spent 3 days among them, using human medicine to help beings that had given up hope long ago. She could not save all of them, but she saved many. And in return, the Wanderers gave humanity something precious. They gave them star charts of Andromeda, maps that showed where the Hollow Ones were strongest and where they were weak. "You are strange creatures," the Wanderer's elder said to Hannah. "You help us even though we cannot help you. You show kindness even though you gain nothing from it." "Why?" Hannah smiled. "Because that is what humans do." The elder was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that would stay with Hannah for the rest of her life. "We have drifted in this void for 10,000 years. We lost our purpose. We lost our will to live. We forgot why existence mattered." He looked at her with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. "You humans carry something we lost long ago. Perhaps that is why the universe keeps failing to kill you." When Hannah returned to the Horizon's Edge, she told the crew what the elder had said. They stood a little taller after hearing those words. They felt a little stronger, but their strength was about to be tested. Again, Yuna collapsed in the middle of the ship's main corridor. Hannah rushed to her side and found that the scientists could barely breathe. The radiation damage had spread. Her organs were failing. The secret was out. The crew gathered outside the medical bay, waiting for news. When Jinho came out, his face was grim. "She may not survive the rest of the journey," he said quietly. The crew was silent. Yuna had given everything to this mission. She had designed the engine that made it possible. She had sacrificed her health to keep them alive. And now she was dying. Taeho pushed through the crowd. "There has to be something we can do." Jinho put his hand on the young pilot's shoulder. "Hannah is doing everything she can. The Wanderers are sharing their medical knowledge. But some things are beyond our power to fix." That night, Taeho went to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. He thought about his sister who had died on Titan. He thought about Yuna, who was dying now. He thought about all the sacrifices that had brought them this far. He made a decision. Whatever happened next, he would not let those sacrifices be meaningless. He would see this mission through to the end, even if it cost him everything. The Horizon's Edge left the Wanderers behind and continued toward Andromeda. The galaxy was closer now, a great spiral of light that filled half the sky. Somewhere in that light, the Hollow Ones were waiting, but the humans were coming, and they were not afraid. 18 months after leaving Earth, the Horizon's Edge crossed into the Andromeda galaxy. The crew gathered at the windows and watched as the first stars surrounded them. After so long in the darkness between galaxies, The light felt almost overwhelming. For a moment, there was pure joy. People hugged each other. Some of them cried. They had done what no human had ever done before. They had reached another galaxy. Captain Jinho allowed them a few minutes to celebrate. Then he called them back to their stations. "We have arrived," he said. "But our mission is not over. Stay alert." His warning came just in time. The Hollow Ones found them within hours. At first, they appeared as shadows on the sensors, dark shapes moving against the light of the stars. Then the shapes grew larger and more defined. They were ships, if you could call them that. They looked like nothing humans had ever seen. They were made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. They had no windows, no markings, no sign that living beings had ever touched them. They were machines, cold and perfect and deadly. There were thousands of them. The horizon's edge stopped. There was nowhere to run. The Hollow Ones had surrounded them completely. A voice came through the communication system. It was not a natural voice. It was flat and empty, without any emotion at all. "We are the Hollow Ones. We are the harvesters of Andromeda. We have detected organic matter aboard your vessel. You will submit to collection. Resistance will result in destruction." Ginho stood on the bridge, looking at the endless swarm of enemy ships. His crew was watching him, waiting to see what he would do. He thought about everything they had been through. The storms, the darkness, the fear. He thought about Yuna, lying in the medical bay, still fighting to stay alive. He thought about Taiho, who had lost so much and kept going anyway. He opened a channel to the Hollow Ones. "We are humans from the Milky Way galaxy," he said. "We did not come here to be harvested. We did not come here to submit. We came here because we wanted to see what was on the other side of the void." He paused. "And we are not leaving." There was a moment of silence. Then the Hollow One spoke again. "Your species is unknown to us. You are small. You are weak. You will be collected like all organic matter before you. This is efficient. This is necessary. Submit or be destroyed." Jinho turned off the channel. He looked at his crew. "You heard them. What do you want to do?" Borasio stepped forward. "We fight." Taiho nodded. "We fight." One by one, the crew spoke. Every single voice said the same thing. They would not submit. They would not run. They would fight, even if it meant dying. Jinho felt pride swell in his chest. This was humanity at its best. Faced with impossible odds, they chose to stand rather than kneel. "Then we fight," he said. "All hands to battle stations." The battle began. The Hollow Ones attacked with terrible precision. Their weapons cut through space like knives, slicing at the horizon's edge from every direction. But the human ship was built strong, and its crew was stronger. Taiho flew with skill that bordered on impossible, dodging beams of energy that should have destroyed them. Minho kept the engines running, even as systems failed around him. Bora led teams to repel the Hollow Ones that tried to board the ship, but they were losing. Slowly, surely, they were being overwhelmed. The Hollow Ones breached the hull in 3 places. Their soldiers poured into the ship, machines shaped like insects, with blades for hands and red lights for eyes. Bora fought them in the corridors, using weapons and fists and anything else she could find. She lost good people. She lost friends. But she held the line. In the medical bay, Hannah protected the wounded. She had never been a fighter, but she picked up a weapon and stood at the door. "You will not take my patients," she said as the machines approached. Nari worked at her station, searching for any signal, any sign that they were not alone in this galaxy. She found something. Buried under layers of static, she heard voices. There were other species in Andromeda, hiding, surviving, watching the battle. They were afraid to help, but they were watching. "Captain," she reported, "we are being observed. There are others out there." Ginho understood what that meant. If they could win this fight or even just survive it, those watching species might find the courage to resist. The humans could show them that the Hollow Ones were not unbeatable, but first, they had to find a way to win. Suho had been studying the Hollow Ones since the battle began. He noticed something. All their movements were coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. When one ship moved, the others adjusted. When one soldier fell, the others changed their patterns. They are connected, he told Jinho. There must be a central hub, something that controls them all. If we can destroy it, we might be able to shut them down. A massive structure at the center of the Hollow One formation, bigger than anything else. It pulsed with dark energy, sending signals to every ship and soldier. That is the hub, she said. But it is protected by hundreds of ships. We could never get close enough to destroy it. Yuna's voice came over the intercom. She had left the medical bay against Hannah's orders. She was standing at her station in the engine room, her hands shaking, her face pale with pain. I can do it, she said. The fold drive. I can overload it, turn it into a bomb. If we get it close enough to the hub, the explosion will be big enough to destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. Jinho felt his heart grow cold. That would be a one-way trip. Whoever delivers the bomb will not come back. I know, Yuna said. I designed the drive. I know how to arm it. And I am dying anyway. Let me do this. The bridge was silent. No one wanted to let her go. But before Jinho could respond, another voice spoke. No. Taiho stepped forward. You are too important. You are the only one who truly understands the drive. If we survive this, we will need you to get home. He looked at Jinho. Let me do it. Taiho, you do not have to. Yes, I do. Taiho's voice was steady. My whole life, I have been looking for something that matters. Something that makes all the pain worth it. This is it. This is what I was meant to do. Jinho wanted to argue. He wanted to find another way. But he could see in Taiho's eyes that the young pilot had made his choice. And he knew that choice was right. Teach him, Jinho told Yuna. I want to show him how to arm the drive. They loaded the fold drive onto a small shuttle. Yuna showed Taiho how to set the overload sequence. Hannah gave him medicine to keep him alert. Bora gave him a gun, just in case. Nari gave him a hug and told him he was the bravest person she had ever known. Jinho was the last one to say goodbye. He gripped Taiho's hand and looked him in the eye. We're a good man, Kim Taiho. Your sister would be proud. Taiho smiled. It was a real smile, the first one Jinho had seen from him since the mission began. Get them home, Captain. Make this worth it. The shuttle launched. Taiho flew through the enemy formation like a ghost, using every trick he had ever learned to avoid the Hollow One's weapons. Ships exploded around him, beams of energy missed by centimeters. But he kept going, his eyes fixed on the hub ahead. He thought about his sister. He thought about the crew he was leaving behind. He thought about all the species watching from the shadows, waiting to see if humanity would fail like everyone. Elsie opened a channel to the horizon's edge. Oh, my sister's memory. Finally did something that mattered. Then he flew into the heart of the hub and triggered the overload. Explosion was visible across half the galaxy. The horizon's edge was thrown backward by the shockwave. Crew members were knocked from their feet. Systems failed. Lights flickered. But when the light faded and the sensors came back online, they saw something incredible. The Hollow Ones had stopped. Every ship, every soldier, every machine. They floated dead in space, their connection to the hub severed, their purpose destroyed. Kim Taiho had won. On the bridge, Captain Ginho stood in silence. Around him, the crew was crying, cheering, holding each other. They had survived. They had done the impossible. But Jinho could only think about the young pilot who had sacrificed everything so they could live. Thank you, he whispered. We will not waste this. Silence filled the space where the battle had been. The Hollow Ones floated lifeless among the stars, their dark ships drifting without purpose. The explosion that killed them had been so bright that worlds light years away had seen it. And on those worlds, beings who had hidden in fear for thousands of years began to emerge from the shadows, on the horizon's edge. The crew tried to understand what had just happened. They had won. Against an enemy that had terrorized an entire galaxy for millions of years, they had won. It seemed impossible. It felt like a dream, but it was not a dream. It was real. and they had paid a terrible price for it. Captain Ginho stood on the bridge, looking out at the remains of the Hollow One fleet. Somewhere in that wreckage was what was left of Kim Tai-ho's shuttle. The young pilot who had been searching for meaning his whole life had found it in the last moment. Ginho did not cry. He was too tired for tears, but he made a silent promise to himself and to Tai-ho's memory. He would make sure this sacrifice meant something. He would make sure humanity's journey was not forgotten. The first signal came within hours. It was a transmission from a nearby star system. Sent by a species that had been hiding from the Hollow Ones for 3,000 years, they had seen the battle. They had seen the explosion, and they could not believe what they had witnessed. "Who are you?" the message asked. "How did you do the impossible?" Nari replied for them. "We are humans from the Milky Way galaxy. We came to see what was on the other side of the void. And we do not believe in impossible." More signals followed, dozens of them, then hundreds. Species that had survived in secret pockets of Andromeda, hiding in asteroid fields and dead moons, emerged to make contact. They wanted to know about these strange beings, who had destroyed the enemy that none of them could defeat. Word spread across the galaxy faster than light. The humans came. The humans destroyed the Hollow Ones. The humans freed us all. On the horizon's edge, life slowly returned to normal. The crew repaired the damage from the battle. They mourned their dead. They celebrated their survival. And they began to plan for the future. Unicong was still alive. Against all odds, Kana's treatments and the medical knowledge from the Wanderers had stopped the radiation damage from spreading. She was weak and would never fully recover, but she was breathing. She was thinking. She was still YUNA. Hannah found her in the engine room 3 days after the battle, staring at the empty space where the full drive had been. "You should be resting," Hannah said. Yuna shook her head. "I need to start designing a new drive." "We still have to get home," Hannah smiled. Some things never changed. Even after everything that had happened, Yuna was still thinking about equations and engines. "You will have plenty of time for that. But right now, you need to heal." Yuna allowed Hannah to lead her back to the medical bay. But her mind was already working on the problem, already imagining new designs and solutions. That was who she was. That was what humans did. They kept working, kept building, kept reaching for the next goal even when they had just achieved the impossible. The alien species of Andromeda sent representatives to meet the humans. Ships of all shapes and sizes gathered around the horizon's edge, curious and hopeful. They had lived in fear for so long that they had forgotten what hope felt like. Now they remembered. Jinho welcomed each delegation personally. He told them about Earth, about humanity's history, about the journey that had brought them across the void. He did not try to make humans seem better than they were. He was honest about their flaws, their wars, their mistakes. But he was also honest about their strengths, their stubbornness, their creativity, their refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. One representative, a being that looked like a tree made of crystal, asked him a question that Jinho would never forget. "Your species is so young. You have existed for such a short time. How did you find the courage to do what ancient races could not?" Ginho thought about it for a long moment. Then he answered, "Maybe that is exactly why. We do not live long enough to learn that something is impossible. We do not have time to lose hope. So we just keep trying, again and again, until we succeed or die. I think that is what makes us different. We are too stubborn to know when we should give up." The crystal being made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then perhaps the universe needs more beings like you." Back in the Milky Way, the transmission from the horizon's edge arrived at Earth 3 years after it was sent. The message traveled across the void, carrying news that would change human history forever. The Galactic Council was the first to receive it. The 12 alien species who had laughed at humanity's ambition gathered to hear the report. When the transmission ended, they sat in stunned silence. The humans had reached Andromeda. The humans had destroyed an enemy that had existed since before most of their species were born. The humans had done what no one believed was possible. The council leader, the tall creature with silver skin and diamond eyes, spoke first. We have watched 10,000 species rise and fall. We believed we understood the limits of mortal will. We were wrong." His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "The humans did not merely reach Andromeda. They freed it. They did what none of us ever could. Not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they refused, with every fiber of their being, to accept that something was impossible." The other council members nodded slowly. For the first time in millions of years, they felt something they had forgotten. They felt small. They felt humble. And they felt hope. If the young species from the small blue planet could do this, what else might be possible? In Andromeda, the crew of the Horizon's Edge began building humanity's first outpost in another galaxy. They found a beautiful world orbiting a golden star, with blue oceans and green forests and air that humans could breathe. They called the outpost Taiho Station. In honor of the pilot who had given his life to make it possible, Jinho was there when they raised the flag. It was not the flag of any nation. It was a new flag, created for this moment, showing Earth and Andromeda connected by a single line of light. It represented what humanity had become, not just a species from one small planet, but a people who could reach across the universe. Yuna designed a new fold drive, better than the first one. Minho built it with his own hands. Suho calculated the route home. Bora trained new security teams from the alien species who wanted to learn human ways of fighting. Hannah taught medicine to beings who had never seen a human doctor before. Nari established communication networks that connected worlds that had been isolated for thousands of years. They had come to Andromeda as explorers. They stayed as builders, teachers, and friends. 1 year after the battle, Jinho stood on the surface of the planet they had claimed. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Behind him, the outpost was coming alive with lights. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building something new together. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about his father, who had died dreaming of the stars. He thought about Taiho, who had turned his pain into purpose. He thought about all the people who had said this mission was impossible. They had been wrong. Humanity had proven them all wrong.